Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host. I'm coming to you in the late morning of March 26th, 2025. And I'm going to start. There's several things and some lighter things that are a part of this podcast, but some serious ones as well. Pardon me. And I'm going to start with this little dust up that has emerged in the last 24 to 36 hours about uh, members of President Trump's foreign policy and national security teams um, using Signal app um, for a discussion and kind of a back and forth exchanging of ideas. And The Atlantic suggesting that it was classified information and it was a war plan. When I first learned about this story late Monday, early Tuesday morning, I was pretty ticked off. But as with a lot of stories, you have to kind of let some information emerge and kind of settle in a certain spot. And that's what I've tried to do here. Um, so the background is this. And I mentioned this just last week about the attack on the Houthis a couple of weeks ago. Um, so the time that this was going on, apparently there was a member of the U.S. media, Jeffrey Goldberg, who is the editor at The Atlantic. Jeffrey Goldberg is a journalist who has done much to display his animus toward President Trump. He's done a lot to try to embarrass him and accuse him of things that were not reality. So he's been engaged in what some would say fake news over time. And let me tell you what my journalism instincts are telling me about this story. It's going to be a drip, drip, drip. So apparently he got invited on this Signal app. So Signal app is a supposedly an encrypted back and forth that people can do. And the intel community in the United States uses it, the CIA, a variety of others. Apparently, the devices for Team Trump in the national security arena, they were already pre-set up for this kind of thing. So at least the Biden administration was doing this, and it could be before. I'd love to know if Team Trump Edition 1 was doing this as well. But the whole story is this, that there was this exchange, and Pete Hegseth put out timeline and sequencing of certain things that were going to happen at certain times in the dealings with the Houthis. Now, let's double back on the Houthis here. The Houthis are, the the Houthis in Yemen are not a benevolent actor. You will see the media, the legacy media, describe them as rebels. They're not rebels. The Houthis are a proxy for the Iranian government, just like Hezbollah in Lebanon and just like Hamas in Gaza. That's what they are. Let's call them what they are. They are terrorists. They are people who have, since uh, the war Israel has engaged against Hamas, following the October 7, 2023 attacks in Israel. Um, the Houthis have been very active in trying to shut down cargo in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And the key thing here is this: there's going to be a drip, drip, drip of things coming from Jeffrey Goldberg that are all designed to say, oh, see this, this is a scandal, this is a scandal, this is a scandal. Now, my first reaction when I heard about this is whoever invited this journalist on should be fired. I've kind of moderated my position since, and I, I believe whoever that is, and there are people suggesting it is an underling to National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and his name is Alex Wong. Whoever that is should just come forward, level with the American people. I screwed up. I shouldn't have done it. Now the story is that Jeffrey Goldberg stayed on this Signal chat for a period of time before he bowed out. But I'm willing to guess he did enough screenshots and got enough damage so that he thinks he can um, play with this for a period of time and keep it alive in the attention of the American people, and it will be something that um, we hear about for some period of time to come. And it would be nice if we just had someone come out and say, I screwed up. I apologize to the American people. It won't happen again. That would be the thing to do. Now, this this doesn't even get to the idea of this encrypted chatting within the intel community. Let me tell you what my gut says. And this is pure gut. I have no military background, but I've seen enough of this kind of stuff with the Chinese wreaking havoc in our own government and other things, um, and a variety of others over time. The Russians. All it's going to take is a very creative, resourceful, and enterprising hacker somewhere, and they're going to hack into the Signal app, and these people are going to be discussing something that has a whole lot more consequence and stands to jeopardize the lives of American military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, others, and potentially American intelligence agents in other countries. I think it's just because all the cool kids are using Signal app doesn't mean that you should. And that's what my gut is telling me right now. And that's where I'm landing on this. But make no mistake about this. The Houthis are terrorists, and anyone who's attempting to tell you otherwise is engaging in propaganda. And it's a situation that is going to could get uglier before it gets better. But make no mistake about this. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this. If Donald Trump throws someone under the bus because someone needs to be a scapegoat for this, the media will not relent, and there will be more and more and more and more people that they demand on. So I'm going to leave that at that. The resistance playbook. Okay. I'm going to hit on a couple of stories here that have been a little under the radar, not getting a lot of attention. You have to be someone who's basically on a variety of news sources every single day to be hearing this kind of stuff. So let me share with you a story that emerged earlier this month, 2 weeks ago, in fact, 2 weeks ago today. This was an exclusive by the Daily Signal. I'm not going to read the entire story. It's going to be something that I include in the comments to this podcast, and you can catch it there in its entirety. But let me read a few paragraphs of this story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read a few paragraphs high and a few paragraphs low in the story. It says exclusive. Dem governors get strategy for National Guard deployment, executive orders to resist Trump. Um, this is a story written by Fred Lucas at the Daily Signal. Democrat governors have a resistance playbook created for them that includes draft executive orders to defy administration's immigration policies, as well as instruction on deploying the National Guard. The Governors Action Alliance, a Democrat organization that founded the group, Governors Safeguarding Democracy, provided such guidance to the staffs of Democrat governors across the country after the election of President Donald Trump. The 126 pages of the playbook, including emails, talking points, and a firewalling of freedom template gubernatorial executive order, were obtained in a public records request from the office of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro by the private nonprofit watchdog group Government Accountability and Oversight, and shared with the Daily Signal. The documents offer a potential glimpse of for what's ahead as Democrat-run states prepare to clash with the federal government. The organization laying out the strategy is run by a host of former staffers for Democrat governors and liberal organizations, including NARAL, Pro Choice America. NARAL is the National Abortion Rights Action League. Demos, DEMOS, I've never heard of them, and Common Cause. The Firewall for Freedom template gubernatorial executive order directs that no state agency, employee, or agent may comply with a request for information or assistance if they have reason to believe the request is in furtherance of any investigation, arrest, prosecution, or other sanction of conduct initiated by federal authorities or out of state authorities. This includes no assistance to federal officials regarding healthcare services, lawful under state law, and no assistance to the federal government to identify or apprehend a person in order to subject them to civil immigration detention, removal, or deportation proceedings, and to prosecute a person or persons for offenses related to immigration status. So this is basically a strategy that came into play here following the election. You have two governors that are the head of this. You have J.B. Pritzker of Illinois and Jared Polis of Colorado. And I want to read just a few. It names a few people who are some of these operatives. There's someone with the last name of Spiegel, a few other names that will come across here. Neither Spiegel, the CEO of Governors Action Alliance, nor Allegra Chapman, the managing director of Governors Safeguarding Democracy, responded to inquiries from the Daily Signal for this story. A spokesperson for this group also did not respond. Spiegel is a former legal counsel for California Governor Gavin Newsom. Chapman is a former assistant attorney general under then New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. Emily Kirby, the Governor's Action Alliance Director for Legal Strategy and Policy, is a former general counsel for North Carolina's Democrat Governor Roy Cooper. The Alliance's Director of External Affairs, Kristen Ford, previously worked for then California Attorney General Kamala Harris as a Deputy Communications Director. In a January 19 email to Democrat governors' offices one day before Trump was sworn in, Chapman promoted in a briefing that included personnel from at least two organizations that have consistently sued the new Trump administration. The briefing was titled, What Governors Need to Know with Norm Eisen. Remember that name because it's going to be in the next thing that I touch on. Eisen, the former White House ethics czar under President Barack Obama, is the founder of the State Democracy Defenders Fund and said his group planned more than 100 lawsuits against Trump this year. Among the suggested talking points Chapman listed for governors included pragmatic sentiments such as, our immigration system is deeply broke. No kidding. The last thing we need is another 4 years of chaos and bad judgment under President Trump. Other points were more partisan, such as Trump Republican immigration extremism is targeting trusted members of our communities. This chaos is tearing families apart. The Governor's Action Alliance is a project of the Global Impact Social Welfare Fund, a left-leaning advocacy group that has given grants to liberal groups advocating for gun control and stronger environmental regulations, according to the Capital Research Center, a think tank that monitors nonprofits. The Governor's Action Alliance received $500,000 last year from liberal billionaire Pierre Amidar's group, the Democracy Fund. So, um, the Governor's Action Alliance 7-member advisory board is mostly Democrat, but does include two anti-Trump former Republicans, former Republican Governor Arne Carlson of Minnesota and William Weld of Massachusetts. Weld unsuccessfully challenged Trump for the GOP nomination in 2020. That gives you a flavor of this resistance playbook. Now, going to a second story. This comes from redstate.com. Panic hits Democrats as Trump goes after their money and infrastructure. And I'm not going to read all of this. President Trump is tearing out the infrastructure of the Democrat Party and setting off panic in progressive circles, according to a report in the New York Times. Trump's attacks on Democrat fundraising, organizing, and legal organizations are presenting the Democrats with a threat that only Republicans have encountered in the past. The report highlights Trump imposing what amounts to economic sanctions on three Democrat-affiliated law firms, Perkins Coie, Covington, and Burlington. Perkins Coie, Covington and Burlington, and Paul Weiss via executive orders. Also of concern is the possibility that Trump may seek to review and revoke the nonprofit status of some of the blatantly partisan nonprofits operated for the benefit of progressive causes and candidates. There's a variety of acronyms and names that are tossed out here. The bottom line is this, and this is what is so amazing to me. When you people intentionally go after the former president when you believe he intends on seeking re-election, and the feds raided his Mar-a-Lago house. The feds had multiple lawsuits fashioned against him in the state of New York, the state of Georgia, and Washington, D.C. And what did you think was going to happen if Donald Trump got back in power? There is this thing called political payback and blowback. And that's what's happening here. The idea that it wouldn't happen is just foolishness. And there's a lot of people barking up there about how, oh, these threats against these law firms threaten American legal procedure and process. What did you think was going to happen? Of course, this was going to happen. period. And Norm Eisen is connected to names that Trump specifically has identified. So that's why um, that name Norm Eisen is critical. Both the Resistance Playbook and some of these law firms that are suing, um, that are engaged in lawsuits against Team Trump, are involved in this. The fourth item here is breathtaking incompetence. This will be shared in the comments as well. This is a Laura Ingle or a Laura Ingle um, uh, from Fox News. She had on a gentleman by the name of Sam Korkos, who is a tech guru and has started up some companies. And she also had Treasury Secretary um, Besant on her show on March 20th. They were talking about the IRS. Now, get this, folks. You can go to the video, hear it for yourself. It runs about 12, 13 minutes. I'm trying to synthesize this as best as possible. So, beginning in 1990, there was a plan to upgrade the IRS computer system. Basically, it was running on COBOL, a very legacy system that is a throwback to literally the mid and late 20th century. So um, that's the IRS computer system. And again, 1990. So we're going back to the George H.W. Bush presidency. There's a plan to get it up and updated by 1996. So here we are, 35 years later. It's still not working as it should or updated as it should. And they've spent $15 billion on this. And the thing that is amazing here is this, as Sam Korkos was describing this, and some assistance from the Treasury Secretary. Um, Sam Korkos goes, in the private sector or the average bank, your IT department is 100 to 200 people. They have a running budget of about $20 million a year. And at the IRS, now he compliments the people who are dealing with writing code, and these people know what they're doing. The problem is the consultants. Get a load of this. So this Sam Corco said 100 to 200 people in the average IT department, $20 million a year. At the IRS, the IT department is 8,000 people, and they have an annual budget of $3.5 billion, 80% of which goes to consultants. At which point, the Treasury Secretary is explaining on um, the Fox News program by Laura Ingle, um, that these consultants are basically a boa constrictor, squeezing the life for all they can out of the American taxpayer. Sam Korkos is confident they can get this thing done, but 35 years late and $15 billion, just breathtaking incompetence. The next thing I'm going to share with you is from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Now, he wanted to give back some money to the federal government during the Biden administration. He was sitting on nearly $1 billion. It was like 878 million. So we're talking close to $900 million. And unused by the state of Florida. Frankly, any state that has money sitting around from the federal government should be doing the same thing. I mean, Florida. I've expressed on this podcast before that I like Ron DeSantis. I like Ron DeSantis because he brings competence to government. And he returned nearly $1 billion. All it took was one conversation with Elon Musk and some others with the Doge team, and the money has been returned. Every state in the country needs to follow him. Now, I wanted to share this. This is BuzzFeed. This is not a media source I typically go to primarily because it's very left wing. But I wanted to get a sense as to what some of the criticisms Europeans had of Americans. And I'm going to read you a few of these so you can get a flavor of what, when Americans are overseas and they are conducting themselves a certain way, the impressions that they're leaving with Europeans. Um, Only two political party options is a complete joke format of democracy. Now, at some point in the future, I'm going to have a conversation with my son about political parties. Sam's a little bit of a historian, um, and there's some other things that we're going to talk about. But over in Europe, they have a completely different system. They have what is a true democracy, majority rule. In the United States, our system of government protects even those who are in the minority of public opinion. So don't give much credence to that one. But anyways, number two, as a European, it never ceases to amaze me how little the U.S. invests in the well-being of its own citizens. Basic education, food quality, accessibility of basic health care, public transportation, worker protection, and consumer protection all seem to be lacking compared to Europe. So where is all that money going? Um, to immigrants and foreigners? I don't think so. There is plenty of money in America to spend on its own. I'm going to leave that there. Number three, we know a lot of Americans don't have a good cultural education. There's the college student who backpacks for a gap year and just wants to get drunk or high in Amsterdam. Then there's the 65-year-old who has never left the States before and is totally helpless and lost. But to continually scorn Yankees who venture over their borders is just stupid. I'm 70 now, lived in London 50 years ago, and just retired from the airlines, where I've seen every bad behavior from every kind of tourist from everywhere. So that guy's kind of defending Americans. Okay. Number four, Americans at home are the most generous and considerate of hosts. But something happens once they travel to other countries, and it has a lot to do with their inbred exceptionalism and xenophobia, a combination born of willful ignorance and an acronym for a profanity. Backstory that Americans tell themselves that they are the tip of the spear of freedom and the greatest country in the world. In the main, this is why Americans abroad are reviled and ridiculed the world over. I could say some things there. I'll refrain. I'll go like half of these. Number five, I guess Americans think that they are superior and more intelligent than any other people on earth. In fact, the British are like that since they speak only English, with exceptions, of course. Americans only know what is said in their own media. And worst of all, they believe that everything said in their own media is true. America is not the world's policeman. Being powerful does not give the right to intervene in other countries. I could say some things there. Number six, I hate how Americans can never accept they have an accent. Well, of course, if you're speaking to an American, let's say you're in any number of different countries in Europe, of course there would be an accent there. It's kind of stupid to think if you don't. Um, Ordering a side of ranch will never happen in Europe. It is insulting and a dead giveaway that you are an ignorant American. Really don't care about that at all. The last one I'm going to share with you. Be respectful of the culture and do not insult countries by trying to negotiate prices. Please have a level of appreciation for the work that other countries demonstrate. Um, that just gives you a little bit of a flavor of some of the attitude that goes on overseas. And the reason that I touched on this and wanted to raise this is because I'm seeing headlines, and I've read one story just this morning about how there is a potential divorce in the making between the United States and Europe. Um, they're horribly misled if they think that will work well for them going down the road. What are you going to do? Um, Lean toward China? Oh yeah, let's please replay 20th century communism. Um, a variety of other things there. Um, but when I'm seeing headlines that Americans are now officially hated in Europe and other things, it gives me pause, wondering what in the world is going on there. Um, Last thing I want to share with you is called the Happiness Index. This is a story that emerged on the 20th of March. And this is an index. I'll read a few paragraphs here, and then I'll go to the list, the top 20. The world's happiest country has managed to keep its number one ranking for 8 years running. The picture in the United States isn't so rosy. While Finland once again tops the world's happiness report rankings, the United States at number 24 earned its lowest ranking yet in the 2025 report. The 13th edition of the annual report marks the United Nations International Day of Happiness on March 20th. Who even knew that was a thing? In the United States and parts of Europe, declining happiness and social trust have contributed significantly to the rise of political polarization and votes against the system, the report finds. Um, let's get to the list, the happiest countries. The world's happiest countries. Let's go in descending order from the top 20. 20, the Czech Republic. 19, Slovenia. 18, Canada. Austria is number 17. Lithuania is 16. Ireland is 15. Belgium is 14. Switzerland is 13. New Zealand is 12. Australia is 11. Mexico is number 10. Luxembourg, number 9. Israel, 8th. Norway, 7. Costa Rica, 6. Netherlands, 5. Sweden, 4. Iceland, 3. Denmark, 2. And the Finns, 8 years running, number 1. Now, I don't like the word happy. This stems from watching American television. Oh, whatever makes you happy is it's kind of a common phrase that you might hear in the dialogue of um, some drama or sitcom or whatever. Happiness is overrated. I like the word contentment. Contentment is a sense of um, satisfaction, peace, stability, um, things like that. Um, but they're saying the United States is now at its lowest mark in the 13th year this index has come out. And I'm not surprised between the political polarization, between the mental health crisis we have in a vast swath of America. Um, this does not surprise me at all. Apparently, we've topped out on this list at number 11 in the past, and we are now number 24, and that's our lowest ranking in the 13 years of that report. So, in the comments to this podcast will be a timeline on the actions of the Houthis on the Red Sea. It's an interesting timeline, and it goes to getting to understand why Americans are now going around the Cape of Good Hope, totally escaping the Suez Canal. But there are parts of the world where that can't happen because of proximity to certain things. So the Houthis have been creating some tremendous chaos in the Red Sea, the Suez Canal, and so there is a timeline that you can read on your own, and that comes from some maritime website. I'm also going to share with you the IRS incompetence from the Laura Ingram, not Ingle. I haven't watched Fox News in years, so it's Laura Ingram. Um, but there's a 12 to 13 minute section she has with Sam Korkos and Treasury Secretary Bessent. And then the last thing I'm going to share with you is going to come under the title of Would You Do This? It runs 15 seconds. I'll let you watch the video. You can decide for yourself. But that is all I have for this week's edition of his Violent Victory podcast. Um, again, we're on Apple Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. And I'm dropping another column on Sunday. Thank you to the folks who have been reading. Please share. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, what you're reading in the column, please share it with others. Just trying to build a brand here. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.